exactly news, but 80% of US medical schools don't require a course in nutrition as part of the degree. And this is part of what makes our author unique, because she resigned from a surgical residency and decided to retrain in nutritional biochemistry and cell biology. So when you hear what she has to say about what your cells want you to be eating, you can trust it's got way more authority behind it than what most GPs will have. By the end of this video, you'll know the most important facts that will let you restore your health naturally, all based in the most recent research, and also based in a very personal connection too, because the author's mother died of pancreatic cancer, which is completely preventable. So she's taking the knowledge her mother should have had and is making this available to all of us in the book. So I'm going to tell you what you need to know. And this goes out to everyone who may not have the money to buy this book right now. Hardcovers are starting to push past $40. Or those who don't have the time to read it, which is many people. And the book is actually pretty dense. So first, I'll go through some basics, then I'll get into the top 2 most important biomarkers that we want to test for, and neither of which are standardly ordered. So be sure to watch until the end, and do leave a comment below if this raises any questions for you. So if you're watching this, you've probably also read a lot of other books on nutrition and health, and you might just be wondering what's new in here. To which I'd say, this is probably the most integrated account yet from a Western medical perspective of both evidence-based guidelines for eating and an insider's critique of systemic public failures. In other words, this may be the most pointed account yet of what it truly means to escape from the global industrial food matrix. Now, I used to think that was just a cute little, that phrase was just like from my own eccentric imagination, but until I got to page 303 of her book, where she actually has a section called Get Out of the Matrix. And so the second notable aspect of her research here is that she advances a very compelling account of how most diseases have their origin in metabolic dysfunction or dysregulation. And to keep this as simple as possible, it means that most diseases actually begin from too much sugar in the blood, which has an increasing number of downstream effects the worse the situation gets. In other words, blood sugar is not a diabetic problem. It's also the breeding ground of heart disease, cancer, and stroke. And real talk, she shows that 93% of Americans are likely already to have some degree of metabolic dysregulation. It's grand central station for all kinds of runaway cellular processes, and because this is apparently the cutting edge of research, or because the medical system has an interest in not prioritizing it, they fail to even test for the 2 most important biomarkers that could actually detect a problem 15 years earlier than what's conventionally relied on, which is a sad little fasting glucose test. By then, it's almost too late. You could have caught the train while it was still in the station if you'd asked for a fasting insulin test. So much of the information out there on nutrition tends to come from perspectives that are already harnessed to specific beliefs, preferences, or interests. This doesn't show that any of that information is wrong, but it's actually just proof that the meaning of food and nutrition is multidimensional. It's never just about the food. In the same way that a synthetic simulation of some natural ingredient is never going to carry the same vibration or downstream effects as the natural version. We may still call it citric acid, but our body knows the difference if it came from a lemon or if it's the synthetic version excreted by a specific mold. And what's unique about this book's approach is a few things, but first, it takes a cellular health perspective on food rather than one focused on a specific type of diet philosophy. Or alternatively, you could say that this is a diet philosophy that tries to be as empirical and reductive as possible, literally just going to the bottom of what our bodies need within the cellular context and which molecules we need to get in there. So on this level, it's fairly agnostic about categories like animal-derived or plant-derived, and it just considers how food behaves once it's inside our blood. So the big question is perennial philosophy. It's to ask, what should we eat? What should we not eat? Well, friends, this cookie crumbles rather predictably. We already have a good intuition about this. The real problem is that our modern lifestyles and the demands placed upon us lead us into all kinds of addictions. This goes beyond food cravings and into how we spend our time, which beliefs we hold, and whether or not we can adapt to new information. It's a bit easier to answer the question starting with what we should absolutely not eat. So here are her top 3 absolutely do not eat, do not pass go, just run. Number 1, refined and added sugars. Number 2, refined and added flours and starches. So anything that contains modified starches, for example, and any refined breads. And number 3, refined seed and nut oils. So this is basically anything that's not olive, avocado, or coconut. So if it contains ingredients like dextrose, sucralose, potato starch, tapioca starch, canola oil, anything hydrogenated or hydrolyzed, this is all damaging to blood sugar and it provides no nutritional benefits. So for a deeper, more comprehensive list, you can watch my video, The Ultra Processed Food Matrix, where I review Chris Van Tulleken's bestseller, Ultra Processed People. The cookie crumbles will always tell us the same story, even though we keep reaching for another cookie, hoping we can get it to crumble slightly differently. Don't eat cookies. Eat whole, unprocessed foods. If you are eating animal meats, you also absolutely have to find a way to source free-run, pasture-raised, grass-fed meats. You need to avoid antibiotic intake and divest from systems of industrial abuse. We all know nutrition is 80% of the battle, but getting out of the industrial food matrix means attending to the other 20% too, most of which is finding ways to minimize our stress and cortisol levels, as well as keeping other hormones like melatonin in balance. Now, we may have heard this all before, but that doesn't mean we've integrated it or implemented it. And new details are continually coming to light that help us connect the dots we need. For example, it's now legitimate to conclude that if you live with someone who's constantly nagging you, yelling at you, or otherwise disrupting your nervous system, the links are there now showing that this leads to weight gain. And I think it's really important that this becomes common knowledge. Overall, I think this book makes clear the importance of really taking preventative health measures into our own hands, really prioritizing our nutrition and no longer seeing it through a narrow lens of merely losing weight or gaining muscle. If you'd like to learn more on the topic of functional medicine, you can watch my video, The 3 Simple Paths to Live Past 100, which looks at Mark Hyman's latest book, Young Forever. I hope this video has given you something useful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave a comment or any questions you have below, and I'll answer these here and in upcoming videos.